Welcome to the People Teaching People podcast. Joining me on the podcast is Tyson Plesuk. I have known Tyson my entire life because, full disclosure, Tyson is my younger brother. And along with being my brother, Tyson is also my and my family's physiotherapist. And when I tell people what an awesome physiotherapist my brother is, I can appreciate why they think that I may be just a bit biased. However, I am convinced that through my conversation with my brother on this episode, even without an appointment with him, you will agree that he is pretty darn awesome. Tyson Plesuk is a sports and manual physiotherapist and co-owner of the physiotherapy practice Movement Sports Clinic. He works with Olympic, NHL, and other professional and amateur athletes, as well as people of all ages and backgrounds from the general public. His choice of a career in physiotherapy arose from a keen interest in his own recovery from injuries sustained while participating in hockey, lacrosse, and volleyball. Tyson played junior hockey for the Calgary Canucks for 3 years and also attended the University of Calgary as a kinesiology student. After he finished his junior hockey career, Tyson transferred to Queen's University to play hockey and completed a bachelor's degree in physical and health education and a bachelor's degree in science, majoring in biology. While playing hockey at Queen's University, Tyson was an academic All-Canadian and an assistant captain in his third year and was captain in his fourth year. After Queen's University, he then moved on to complete his Master's of Science in Physical Therapy from the University of Alberta. Tyson has a passion for continual professional development and is certified in acupuncture with the Acupuncture Foundation of Canada, a gun intramuscular stimulation or IMS practitioner, and certified in spinal manipulation. Tyson also has a certificate in sports physiotherapy from Sport Physiotherapy Canada. Tyson served as the head physiotherapist at the 2009 Brier, which is the Canadian Men's Curling Championship, and the Roar of the Rings Olympic Curling Trials. In 2010, Tyson became a physiotherapist consultant to the Canadian Sport Institute, Calgary. Tyson has worked as the medical lead for both the Canadian bobsleigh and skeleton teams and has attended a number of World Cup and World Championships as a physiotherapist. He has also been named and part of the Canadian medical team at the 2014 Olympic Winter Games in Sochi, Russia, the 2018 Olympic Winter Games in Pyeongchang, South Korea, and the 2022 Olympic Winter Games in Beijing, China. In 2021, Tyson was awarded the Canadian Physiotherapy Association's Centenary Medal of Distinction to mark the association's 100th anniversary to recognize 100 plus individuals who impacted physiotherapy from 1920 to 2020. In his spare time, he enjoys weight training, running, playing hockey, coaching his kids' basketball and hockey teams, and spending time with his family. Thank you so much for joining me today, Tyson.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to finally be on your podcast.
Yes, thank you for saying yes and agreeing to be a guest. And we have a lot to talk about today, but I wanted to start with your story, especially when it comes to physiotherapy. And what was it that drew you to physiotherapy in the first place? And were there some key experiences that sort of guided you along that pathway?
For sure, probably one of the first experiences. I was 15 years old. I was at a under 16 Hockey Alberta camp and I ended up hurting my hip flexor, just straining a muscle. And there's an athletic therapist there named Rick Chamney. And I remember talking to him about it in the dining hall. This was at University of Calgary. And he said, okay, come to the rink about an hour before practice and we'll work on you. So went to the rink, and right away from working with him, you could tell he really cared about all the athletes. So he worked on my hip flexor, kind of showed me some things to do to work on it. And my hip flexor felt amazing after he'd worked on it. So I remember skating around the ice right after thinking that could be something that maybe I'd want to do in the future. Unfortunately, Rick passed away, I think 2021. he was actually on another podcast called Leave Your Mark with Scotty Livingston. And so through that podcast, I was able to connect through him, and we actually chatted on the phone, and I was able to let him know what a big influence he had on my career that day. And he said he'd been following my career on social media and was kind of proud of some of the experiences I've gone through. So it was pretty cool to connect with Rick many years later. And Rick was actually talking about moving back to Canada. So we had talked about potentially working together, which would have been amazing. But yeah, unfortunately, we lost him too early. So, but yeah, he was kind of one of the first and biggest influences for me to enter into physiotherapy.
So you had that initial experience, and in that moment, did that sort of define for you that physiotherapy was it, or did it sort of give you an idea that was the area that you wanted to go into? When was that moment when you sort of decided it's going to be physio? That's the specific path.
Yeah, so I contemplated either maybe sports medicine, athletic therapy, chiropractic, or physio. But when I was in high school, I started volunteering at a physiotherapy clinic at a place called Lindsay Park, which has changed names about 5 or 6 times. But I worked under a really amazing physio, Catherine Jeans, and she always joked she's the reason I got into physio school because she wrote me a great referral letter. But yeah, I followed her around and just saw the impact that physiotherapists can make, and working with someone from initial injury all the way back to return to sport was pretty cool. So that kind of, after that, kind of led me into trying to get into physiotherapy school.
So it sounds like there's some key people that have really guided your journey. And one thing that I've really noticed about you, especially in your physiotherapy career, is that you're always learning. I always seem to be hearing about these opportunities that you're taking advantage of for additional education and certification. So I'm curious about what's really driven your commitment to this continual learning and professional development.
Yeah, I'd say probably two main things. The first was I didn't start playing hockey till I was 8 years old. A lot of kids start when they're 4 or 5 years old. So when I entered hockey late, I think my first year hockey, I made Division 8, and they were out of 10 divisions. So I was pretty motivated to try to catch up to kids. So I would try to do extra, whether it was going to the outdoor rink by our elementary school in the mornings, just trying to learn and practicing on my own, or shooting on our younger sister, Devin. She'd often go out with a broomstick when we didn't have pads initially, and I'd shoot frozen tennis balls at her until I'd maybe hit her in the head, and then she'd run in crying and come back out. So, but I think at a young age, I developed to kind of catch up. You have to do extra. So that's kind of one of the first things. And then the other thing is I love to help people, and especially working with athletes. So I'm always motivated to see if there's better ways I can learn to help them. So that's kind of my motivation. I'm a hyper competitive person, which growing up as kids, you would have found out, especially when we were playing Monopoly, if I was losing, the board would go flying. So I try to control that a little bit more now. But I always look at when I work with an athlete, this is my opportunity to see if I can help them, take them to a different level working with them. So that's often my motivation to keep learning. I've been a physio now over 18 years, and I still feel like there's more I need to learn and want to learn. So those are the things that have driven me the last number of years.
Well, I really think the experts that I admire most are the ones who never quite feel like they've arrived and they always have more to learn. However, I am wondering about how you've come along with Monopoly.
Yeah, so yeah, I try to take a couple deep breaths if I'm losing and not throw the board. So yeah, definitely better now, and
Good to
try to be
hear.
a little better influence for my kids, that you want to be not a poor loser and a good winner. So yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't thrown a board in maybe, we'll say, 20 years, 25 years.
that's excellent to hear. I mean, we all have our things that we need to work on. So it's good that you've come a long way in that area. But I know with learning, like there's a vulnerability with learning and growing and developing. And I'm wondering if thinking back, have there been any particularly challenging or defining moments in your academic or professional training that stand out?
Yeah, probably one of the biggest challenge was trying to get to physiotherapy school at the University of Alberta where I went. They had a performance-based interview. And so they looked at your volunteer experience, they looked at your grades, but the final step to get in was a performance interview. So I believe there's 8 stations, and you went around, and there's evaluators marking and kind of evaluating how you did each station. It was interesting. The first station I went to, I remember our dad, took me up to University of Alberta, and we were walking around the campus. He was showing me around his old stomping grounds where he went to university. And somehow the topic came up about how he taught me and how I learned how to tie shoes and using a bunny ear and such. And then about an hour later, when I was in an interview, I had to help this young deaf student learn to tie his shoes. So there was that scenario. The most challenging of the whole time was there were six of us sitting around a table, and the scenario was we had to plan a rainy day activity. There was these four girls in the group that immediately took over, and I couldn't get a word in. I'm sitting there thinking, I want to get into physical school so bad I have to say something. So this one girl took a breath, and I kind of jumped in and said, okay, guys, all these are great ideas, but let's kind of summarize and see kind of what is going to be the most efficient. So, and I was able to kind of get in, but I just remember, that was kind of a challenging experience. I was sitting there for probably 4 or 5 minutes, and these four girls were talking about this rainy day activity, but I was able to kind of get in. And out of our group, 5 out of 6 of us got into physiotherapy school. So, but kind of a challenging experience I was able to navigate.
Those challenging experiences can be tough,
Yeah, for
especially
sure.
when there's people talking and it's hard to get our voice to be heard. And
Definitely.
along with the challenges, of course, we have those wonderful wins and those highlights and those pinch me moments. So, what might be some of those experiences that you've had on your journey?
Yeah, one of the biggest pinch me moments was, I think, going to the Olympics for the first time. So I've been fortunate to be part of 3 Olympics with the Team Canada medical staff. But first one was 2014 and was a pretty cool moment. So when the Olympics were in Calgary, I became obsessed with the Olympics. It was pretty cool growing up as a kid, seeing the Olympics. I remember driving out to Canmore with our dad, and I remember watching biathlon. I met 2 Canadian athletes, and driving home, I told our dad, I'm going to go to the Olympics and win a gold medal for Canada. So I remember getting home that day, and I think I went in the backyard and skied around a little bit, did some shooting. And then in summer, there's a documentary on the gold medalist from Norway and biathlon and how he trained in the summer. He would sprint back and forth in a field, and then he would lay on a red anthill and practice shooting with ants attacking him. So I remember watching that and then immediately thinking, okay, if that's what he did, I got to start doing that. So I went to our elementary school in the Wildwood Field, had my Nerf gun, and I'd sprint back and forth. And unfortunately, I could only find a black anthill, not a red anthill. So it wasn't as tough as what he went through. But so I did that. And then before my biathlon career really took off, I discovered hockey. That was the year I started playing. So never kind of got that. But for years, I'd always dreamed about going to the Olympics. And when I got into physiotherapy school, I thought this could be a goal where I could potentially be part of Team Canada medical staff and go. So to actually go to my first Olympics with athletes, and it's quite a journey for these athletes. It's really tough to make, but it was pretty cool to put the Team Canada clothes on and be there supporting them was pretty cool. The second Olympics, there's a picture behind me right there, but that's at the opening ceremony. So that was also pretty cool to go to the Olympics. Generally, Team Canada only sends its athletes and coaches to the Olympics, but they had a draw, and my name was picked as one of the staff to go. And initially, I was thinking it should just be for the athletes, but a few of the athletes said, no, you're part of our team, you should come. So that was a very cool moment as a physio to walk in with Team Canada to the Olympic Stadium.
And we saw you on TV.
No, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I got lots of messages, people seeing. So that was pretty cool. And the second one in 2020, physiotherapy celebrated 100 years as a profession, and they picked 100 plus physiotherapists to give the Centurium a medal. So they picked physios across the whole 100 years. That's made an impact, and it was very humbling and exciting to be one of those physios chosen. A lot of my professors were picked, some physiotherapists in Canada that were kind of legends and kind of mentors and such. So that was a kind of pinch me moment to have won that award. So something I'm proud of, and pretty cool honor.
You've definitely had some pretty cool experiences. Now, in your field, well, as in many fields, knowledge and practice are constantly evolving. And I think one of the hard things sometimes is knowing what you don't know or knowing what you need to know or what would be good to know. So, what sort of guides you and helps you to stay current and continue to learn and kind of follow the right path for you?
Yeah, I guess I have a thirst for knowledge. So always looking for different ways to keep learning. I like to challenge my ideas. I don't want to just do the same thing. So generally, I like to attend one conference per year and usually try to do two courses a year, whether it's in person or online. Also like to read up to date in the latest research. So I follow a few journals, social media. There's a couple of great research to follow them. So it's a great way to kind of learn kind of the latest trends, different techniques. So yeah, it's definitely the physiotherapy profession has changed in the last 20 years since I entered physiotherapy school. At my clinic, movement sports clinics, we try to get the staff together too to share knowledge, share different cases. So that's a great way too with my fellow colleagues to kind of keep each other up to date.
Yeah, shared knowledge and collective learning is always such a powerful and important way to keep everyone on top of things and moving forward. And so you're doing your own learning and you're facilitating learning and that collaborative teaching within your work environment. Like, when you're working with patients, like your sisters or others, how do you find teaching and learning shows up in your work? So, I mean, we're more in the everyday human category, but I know you work with, of course, some professional athletes, Olympic athletes. How does teaching and learning play a part in that?
Yeah, it plays a big role. When I treat anyone, I want to enter into a partnership, and I look at that we're teammates through the journey. It's also really important to me to try to educate all patients, whether they're kids, grandmas, or professional Olympic athletes, because I want them to take ownership of their injury. And I believe if someone understands their injury more, they're going to come out of it stronger. So, yeah, so try to educate, whether it's models. I always want them to know kind of what's causing their issue. And yeah, if they can better understand it, they'll buy in. So, yeah, really try to spend time when I'm working on people to try to educate them and give them kind of knowledge. So we're going to work together, and also want them to give me feedback too as well. So if I do a technique and maybe it didn't have the desired effect I wanted, I want to get that feedback so we can kind of grow and learn together. I try to individualize each treatment based on the person, kind of where we're at in their journey. So yeah, definitely a big part in teaching and learning and listening. It's the big thing I try to do with all patients. It doesn't matter their age or what level of they're at. So
Well, and I find it very helpful too. I remember physio appointments from the past, like when I was younger, you would get the exercises and you would go home but not really remember what you're supposed to do. So I know we've had appointments where you record and sort of talk through how to do the exercise or the stretch. And then when I get home and inevitably forget, I have something to look back at.
for sure, there's a very low percentage of people that actually do their exercises. So I use an app called Physio, and it's great. So I get to record through the app. I can kind of push on a muscle or push on an area. So I want you to feel this here. Also, I'm not limited by an exercise library. So it's a great app. And what I can do in 30 minutes or an hour with a patient once a week or every couple of weeks is very a small window. So if we can make sure someone's doing stuff on their own, that's what's really going to make the change and kind of lock things in to kind of take us where we need to go. So yeah, it's a great app and great for education. And like you said, I can talk into the app and explain things. So, because yeah, so many people do forget. Back when I first started, our clinic was doing like stick figures and such. So, yeah, this is video's a way better application.
We've come a long way.
Exactly.
I won't get you to rank family members in terms of their commitment to their physio exercises. I don't wanna get you in trouble.
Okay. I appreciate that.
I have a guess in mind, but
Yeah.
it's okay. Now, you've held a number of different leadership opportunities, both on and off the ice, and I'm curious how those leadership experiences have shaped how you support and mentor other people.
Yeah, I was lucky early in my hockey career. I was first an assistant captain my first year and then became captain the next year. So I always took that as a big honor and responsibility to be a good teammate and be a good communicator. And yeah, always tried to be the hardest working player on the ice to set a good example. So I feel like that translated to in school and workplace. Now co-running a clinic with Louise Taylor, my business partner. want to try to communicate and be a good leader for our clinic. And two, if I've taken on some students as well, look at that as a good opportunity to be a leader and give back. But yeah, I had some good opportunities playing hockey and developing those skills, because I think like any skill, it needs to be worked at and developed. So and two, there are people that say are naturally born leaders, but I think it's something you can work on and keep developing your skills and become a better leader.
Well, and I think too, one thing I think I've sort of talked to you about it, but I think there's lots of different ways to be a good leader. There's not like one definition of a good leader. And I think sometimes maybe people think about leadership as being the loudest person in the room and the one who's kind of like standing up front, asking all the attention to be on themselves. But I think there's many different ways to be a really effective leader, and that is not necessarily the be all end all. Do you have any thoughts on what would your leadership style be, or how would you describe that?
Yeah, I guess looking back when I played hockey, I probably wasn't the loudest person in the room, but yeah, I tried to set a good example. If I really wanted to get a message across, I'd speak up. Yeah, tried to be a good communicator, a good liaison between the players and coaches, so to create that good team environment. Um, I really took pride in trying to include everyone in the team, make them feel important. So yeah, like kind of team building to there. So maybe wasn't the raw type guy, but yeah, tried to lead by example. But yeah, I agree that there are different leaders, and there's not just one way to kind of lead a team or an organization.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that message is important to hear, because I think sometimes for young people, as you're sort of sorting yourself out in your younger years, it's good to realize that there's not sort of one way or one path you need to follow to be successful. So it's good to have leadership models and mentors that do things in lots of different ways, and different people can kind of see themselves in the different ways people are displaying leadership. And speaking of, thinking back to yourself when you were interested in physio, sort of thinking that might be a direction that you would pursue, what advice would you give to somebody thinking that they too might be interested or curious about a career in physiotherapy?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think for a younger person, I think it's really good to go to try to volunteer at different places. Often when people think about physiotherapy, they think as physiotherapy at a sports clinic, but there are lots of different opportunities, whether it is working in like cardiorespiratory physio in a hospital with people, let's say, had lung transplant, or after a neurological, so that's working on kind of brain and nervous system injuries, like someone that's had a stroke or has been paralyzed. So I think it's good to kind of get those various experiences to kind of see if that'd be something you want. Also good to talk to a physiotherapist as well. Usually I do my phone calls when I'm driving either to or from the clinic, but I love talking to people that want to enter the profession and try to let them know some of my experiences. But yeah, I think best thing is to volunteer, whether it's in a clinic or a hospital. It can be a good opportunity just to see if this is something you want to pursue. So
Yeah, that's good advice, because sometimes the idea of something is different maybe than the reality of something, and it's good to get a sense of what it actually is all about. So those conversations and experiences can be invaluable. For sure. Now, talked about this a little bit, but one of the things that I really value is the idea that like learning is something that never stops. And it can happen inside of the classroom and in a more formal setting, but also outside. And you've talked a little bit about how that's been a part of your experiences with sport. But I'm wondering, what would be some of the key lessons that you would say you've taken from your sports experiences? So beyond maybe leadership, how do those show up in your life and work today?
yeah, I'm a huge advocate for kids to get involved in sports. I think tons of life lessons from working as a team, and growing up, I played in a couple teams where we weren't probably the most talented, but coaches inspired us to play as a team. And it was amazing to actually witness what we could accomplish when we all share the same goal, work together, not really care about individual success. One coach I had, his name's Kerry Bracco. This was with the U18 AAA Royals, and there's all these other talented teams in the league, but he just really got us to buy in. We became a family. We're the hardest working team in the league. Our practices were tougher than games. And we went on and won the league title, went to nationals, ended up winning the bronze for nationals. So yeah, just to kind of experience that and show the value of hard work and kind of battling through adversity and such are lessons you can take into school and your career. So yeah, huge advocate for kids kind of being involved in sports, and sports, arts, dance, all those things can be valuable for kids to kind of learn life lessons.
Kind of finding those things and places and communities outside of school is always a good thing, no matter what that may be. Now, I wanted to ask you about your goals. So, as far as physiotherapy goes, so you've been to the Olympics, check. That was a goal more than once. And you've been recognized nationally as within a community of, top 100 physiotherapists. So, what else is next for you in terms of your goals when it comes to physiotherapy?
For our clinic, yeah, looking ahead, for me, I'd love for us to add like an up and coming physiotherapist and offer mentorship and kind of share the knowledge I learned and learn from other physiotherapists when they were mentoring me. So I think that'd be great to kind of take someone and help them develop their skills within our clinic. And last year started to go on the ice with some hockey players. I had a NCAA hockey player, unfortunately broke his hip last year. And so yeah, I was working to rehab him from the clinic to the gym and then onto the ice. So I feel that's a kind of area that would benefit a lot of hockey players. So I'd like to kind of pursue that a little bit more, which I have a lot of fun with. But yeah, doing some more on ice physiotherapy and trying to expand that within kind of my repertoire on different services I can offer. So
So, you still have more things you want to do.
definitely, yeah, still motivated to yeah, keep pushing and keep learning. So
Well, and mentorship, I think, is so important. It's such a gift and such an opportunity for reciprocal teaching and learning to happen. And it's great that you want to support sort of that next generation of physiotherapists coming up. Now, on top of all that you're doing in your career, you are also coaching your own children and other young athletes. I know there's been some hockey coaching and some basketball coaching, and I'm wondering what that's taught you about learning, growth, or even yourself through those experiences.
yeah, it's been a great experiencing coaching both kids, but two quite different experiences. We played hockey 18 years. I feel pretty comfortable coaching, teaching hockey. Even with that, I've been trying to adapt my style because not everyone learns the same. So that's something I really tried to connect with each kid and see how best they learn. So that's been a great challenge and lots of fun. And it was really fun to see the growth of all the kids. And the hockey team ended up winning the city finals. So that was a lot of fun, but really to see the growth of all the players, everyone improved, and to see how all these individuals came together to have a team. And then with basketball, I only played junior high basketball. So my level of basketball skills and knowledge was definitely pretty low, but a good challenge for myself to try to find other ways to help the kids. So I coached basketball the last 2 years and really kind of challenged myself to put myself out there. Took a bunch of coaching courses in basketball, was watching YouTube information on kind of coaching. So that was kind of a fun challenge to, yeah, kind of be able to coach my daughter's basketball team, but to kind of go out of my comfort zone a little bit and try to teach these kids something that I wasn't, I'll call it an expert in, but a really great coaching staff that helped me out and kind of gave me some flexibility. But overall, a great experience to coach something that I wasn't super knowledgeable about. But and same thing, yeah, fun to see the girls grow as a team, and they ended up winning silver in cities and provincial. So also a fun and successful year. So
Yeah, always good to stretch yourself and push yourself out of your comfort zone. Jason, so my husband, right now is coaching ball hockey and has never played ball hockey or hockey
yeah,
before in his life. So, but he's learning, and there's a team of individuals supporting these players, and it's been an adventure. He's definitely leaning in on his principal skills.
yeah, nice.
The people skills piece of it. Now, we were chatting a little bit before I hit record, and I know it's so hard to choose just one, and I'm not going to ask you to choose just one. But a question that I've asked over 50 times now to people on my podcast is to think about a favorite teacher that they've had. And this could be somebody inside or outside the classroom, but someone who's taught or influenced you along the way. So, whether in sports or school or life. And then for whichever people you would like to talk about, I'm curious why that person or these people mean so much to you.
For sure. So I'd say my two biggest mentors are our parents. I learned so much from them. I'd say our mom, just one of the most caring people. It just goes out of her way to help people. And yeah, try to kind of embody that spirit she has where always looking to help people. And then for our dad, kind of one of the best communicators and can connect to anyone. So, which I find in the physiotherapy world, yes, it is about putting your hands on people, showing them exercise, but that connection part, which really pushes the therapeutic relationship forward and builds that trust in the relationship. So, yeah, I'd say learned a lot of that connection from watching our dad, how yeah, he can talk to anyone in any room. So I'd say those two are mentors in the classroom. Yeah, so many amazing teachers, but one in particular, Mrs. Hogland. So she taught me grade two. Grade two is a special year, and I'll bring that back up again. That was the year of the Olympics. And so I actually found, I still have this journal. So that is a journal we wrote back and forth with our teacher in grade two. And yeah, a couple lines from it said, I'm so happy that the Olympics are here. I wish we could study more and more about the Olympics. I'm getting so excited because the Olympics are getting closer. And she said, for sure, only 15 days left. And then I said, when we do not study about the Olympics, that makes me sad and angry. But yeah, just like a brilliant lady, yeah, just how she could connect with anyone in the class and just kind of inspired us to learn and grow. So I'd say that was kind of my favorite teacher. And then early on in my career, I was fortunate to be influenced by a lot of good physios. So I could list kind of 100 names, and I really feel those mentors helped me get to where I am. But when I first started practicing, Louise Taylor, who's now my business partner, and Andrea Cosa, who was kind of the main person that referred me to kind of get involved with the Olympic team. Both of those supported me at the clinic I was at. So really grateful because it can be a little intimidating coming to school, but they were a great resource to help me. And then once I got involved into the Olympic team, Louise Vienne, who was my boss and mentor at the Canadian Sports Institute, really kind of showed me the ins and outs of treating high performance athletes, just really caring, really knowledgeable, pushed me to keep learning. And then go on with too many others, but Kevin Wagner, he mentored me when I was doing my sports certification. He'd worked with the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So really went his way to help me be successful doing that exam and yeah, kind of showed me what opportunities there are, especially with hockey players. So yeah, I'd say I could keep going on, but yeah, those are kind of the main ones that really had a positive impact.
I think it's a pretty good problem to have when you are grateful for having so many people have a
Yeah.
positive influence on your journey. And I share with you the Mrs. Hogland favorite teacher connection, favorite classroom teacher. She was amazing. She just made you feel so very much a part of the class community and felt like you belonged there. And I know she was definitely that special person, special teacher for many people. And after this episode will air, I believe it's the next week, I'm meeting her for coffee.
Excellent. Yeah, you'll have to tell her
Yeah.
say hi, and maybe I'll give you. You can take my journal.
I'll take your journal
Yeah.
with me. But yeah, we had a chat on the phone, and the things that she remembers about the many students that she taught
Hmm.
absolutely blows my mind, and it just makes you really realize why she was such a special teacher for so many people. She really cared about her students. Now, we've talked about some of your highlights and pinch me moments, but when you think back on your journey so far, what would be something that you are the most proud of?
Yeah, there's a few. How much time do you have?
Well,
Yeah. So I'd say it's always pretty cool to be part of athletes' journeys and to see their development. So yeah, I've been fortunate to work with some amazing athletes. I guess one in particular, Justin Cripps. So he was a bobsled pilot for Team Canada. So I started working with him in 2012. And at that point, he just moved from pushing the bobsled to a pilot. And at that point, so I would have been 4 years out of school. So I was a pretty new physio, still trying to kind of find my way, but started working with him. And right away, I could tell he was pursuing something special. And when you work with someone like that, you also have to push yourself because he demands excellence. So he was someone that started to push me a little bit and to make sure I could help him. Back then, he was having some trouble with his Achilles tendons and had trouble with sprinting. And we both kind of knew that for him to kind of take it to the next level, he had to be able to sprint. So we worked really hard, figured out a plan to be able to get him back to sprinting. We were able to do that. He progressed, made it to the Olympics as a pilot. Unfortunately, crashed in his third run. So that knocked him out of the Olympics. But we kept working. We worked through some hamstring strains at the World Championships, but yeah, kept working. And someone that really admired his work ethic and how business like he was. So I treated him, I guess, 10 years and was always on time for his appointments. If I gave him something to do, he would do it. So, and him win the Olympic gold in 2018 was pretty crazy and pretty special to see. And then he followed it up with a bronze in 2022. So yeah, pretty cool to kind of be part of his journey from the start to the end. And just to kind of see his professionalism push me to try to become a better physiotherapist. So
That's a pretty big win on many fronts. That's a very cool story. Now, as someone who obviously is always learning, and maybe this could be something outside of physio, or maybe it's something within the context of your work as well, but what's something that you would love to learn about or something that you would love to learn how to do?
yeah, there's a few things, but one I've been thinking about in particular is I'm starting to see a lot of pickleball injuries. And that's something I've never played. So I've kind of challenged myself to try to learn pickleball, both from recreational, but also when I'm treating an injury, I like to understand it. And yeah, a lot of people are coming in with like wrist, shoulder. So, and I know you guys have a pickleball net. So maybe you guys can help me realize my goal is at the cabin this summer. Um,
Okay,
if you
we're
guys
on
bring
it.
it, yeah, you guys can, I'll hire you guys to teach me about pickleball.
Oh boy. Okay, we might have some learning to do prior to
And
that.
I'll try to control my competitiveness. I'll try
Okay.
to break your net if I'm losing.
Okay, thank you. That's a good skill set for sure. And absolutely, so many people are playing that. So I can imagine there's some new injuries that are
Yeah,
sort of
definitely get more
popping
popular.
along. Now, if you could sit down and have a conversation with someone that you would love to learn from, who would it be and why?
That is a great question. The first person that came to mind is Marc Messier. So growing up, he was my first favorite player. Loved watching how he played. And when I became captain, I would kind of study how he would treat players and how he just was a great teammate and just built confidence within the team. So yeah, he'd be someone I'd love to meet. I remember going to West Edmonton Mall and I met him when I was maybe 9 or 10. But yeah, I'd love to be able to sit down and kind of learn about his leadership style, hear some stories about how he handled kind of conflict with a team. But yeah, that'd be I think my first choice, Marc Messier.
Never say never.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we put it out there, you just
Hmm.
never know. Now, in general, and we've talked about this idea, education really plays such an important and integral role in everything that we do. And this is the teacher in me, of course, but it influences how we work and play and live and explore and even build relationships. So I'm wondering if you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom to share that could empower or support people on their own teaching and learning journeys.
Yeah, I'm a big goal setter, and so I like to set a big goal and then work backwards. Whether it is going to the Olympics as a physiotherapist, and then kind of say, okay, what steps can I take? Or um, a while ago, I was like, I'd love to work with high level hockey players. And so with that, I kind of said, okay, what steps can I do now? And I just kept working and I kept trying things and doors would close, but I'd keep pushing through and eventually you're going to get your break. And I think there is luck, but you got to create your luck and you also got to be ready in that moment. So I remember A sports medicine doctor at a camera, Dr. Andy Reid. He ended up sending me a hockey player, and I treated the hockey player, and then this hockey player referred his brother who plays in the NHL. So you never know when you're going to get an opportunity. So I think in those moments, no matter who you're working with, you got to try your best, try to deliver the best treatment, whether it's treating a grandma who wants to play with her grandkids or professional athletes. Yeah, you just want to try to do your best every time with someone and be a good person and really care about people. So I feel, yeah, that's a way to kind of try to accomplish your goals. So
Mhm. Yes, I am also a firm believer in that energy we put out into the world, and the world is a much smaller place than I think sometimes we realize.
for
So,
sure.
lots of connections and interconnections. Tyson, I would like to thank you very much for taking time out of your evening to connect with me and share your stories and words of wisdom with us today. If our listeners want to learn more about you and all the things that you're up to and that your clinic is up to, where are the best places to find you?
So I do have a website. It's TysonPhysiotherapy.com. I haven't really updated in a while, but my contact's there and there's a few testimonials and such. I have an Instagram account, so it's Tyson_Physio. I like to share interesting things I find. As teammates with a lot of athletes and patients, I love to be a cheerleader for them and try to promote their success. And so, yeah, I like to share some of their success stories on there. So, yeah, so those are probably the two main spots to reach out to.
Sounds good. I will make sure to share those in the show notes. Thank you so very much for joining me. It was lovely to connect with you and to learn from you.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on. And I love your podcast. I'm a frequent listener. So, yeah, keep doing a great job.
Thank you for your support, your brotherly support.
Yeah, you're welcome.